Hi there, thanks for joining me. Today I am going to show you how I made my surprise little mini album, and I've used the stunning January kits from Hip Kit Club, and let me tell you, it was a bit of a labour of love, but I do love how it's turned out. So to begin with, I've created the album from scratch, and the album size is 6 by 6. So my thought is I've taken a white sheet of cardstock and cut that in half, and I folded each half in half again, so you've got 4 pages. And so I didn't have any fancy binding. I am going to adhere 2 of the pages together to create this pocket. And I love pockets so that you can tuck in extra journaling or extra photos and so on. And it's just a really simple way of binding an album together. So I'm going to use some red tape, so really strong tape, to go around 3 edges, as you can see here. And you could sew these together. In hindsight, I think the only thing I found is by doing it this way is the pocket's quite tight, so there's not much gap between the pages, as you can imagine. So maybe it would have been better to use some foam tape to adhere them together, just to give you that a little bit more depth. But it does work, and I've added an extra panel into my album, which you'll see later on. So I've already pre-cut all the pattern papers and I've sewn around the edges. And for my front and back cover, I've also attached a length of ribbon that you can see there. And I'm using a combination of papers from the January Hip Kit, which are just stunning. So there are beautiful colours, so like peachy pink colours, as well as I'm using some of the greys and some of the purples. And purple isn't, it's not really a purple, it's more like a purpley blue. And is that indigo? Who knows? Anyway, so on the front cover, I wanted to go with a kind of a faux envelope idea. I absolutely adore envelopes, and rather than make a real envelope, I decided that I really wanted just to use the flaps of the envelope, so that you can see here at the bottom, I'm only going to adhere it at the very bottom of that flap. And again on the top, I'm just going to adhere the very top of the flap to the cover. And then I'm just going to also secure it in the centre, so the 2 pieces are joined together in the centre, like that. And I've left the sides open, so this will allow me to tuck in some extra bits and pieces. And I'll use that as part of my decoration then to decorate the album. So it's a really simple design because I'm going to leave the exciting bits for the inside of the album. But just look how beautiful that colour is. I think the beauty of having a kit each month is that Kimberly and Kim either design a special kit for us with exclusive papers, as they are in January. But it kind of challenges you to use maybe things that you wouldn't use all the time, so the colours and so on. And I really enjoy that process because, you know, otherwise I just stick to pinks and blues and it gets a bit dull after a while. So I'm just adhering all the background papers to the album now, and as I've said, I've already punched out the little notch for the pocket, and I've sewn around all the edges. And on the blog, so if you go to the Hip Kit Club blog, I have created a template for the pop-out mechanism, and there's also a diagram there for the actual card base as well. And it looks kind of complicated, and it probably, to get your head around it to begin with, it is sort of fairly complex. But actually, it's really simple once you know how, which is always the way, isn't it? So once you've mastered it once, I think it'll be really easy to reproduce again and again. And I can see I'm going to be making lots of cards like this, and adding more pieces like this to my albums and my scrapbooks, just because they're so much fun and they're such a surprise. I've actually given the album to my daughter for her birthday, or as part of her birthday present, and she absolutely fell in love with it. A, because it's got pictures of the dog, but B, I think it was just such a surprise, and it's so tactile. It's just really cute. So this, I've seen this pop-out mechanism on lots of different cards, but they generally go from left to right. So the card opens vertically, and then the inside page pops out across horizontally. But for mine, I wanted to make it a traditional book style, which makes it a little bit more complex maybe, but it really worked well for me, just how I imagined. So the important thing is to decorate that concertina card that pops out, because once you've got the album secured into place, it's quite tricky then to go ahead and decorate. And I'm just decorating mine simply with pattern papers, the photo, and then I'm going to punch out a star for each page, and then use one of the alphas from the main kit just to write the word love. So it's really simple. And I got that star punch recently, so that's just handy for getting going rather than having to get out your dies and so on. So I think the important thing is, again, to keep things quite flat, make sure they're really well secure, because the pop-out mechanism does move about as you open the page, and you don't want it to catch on anything, and you don't want it too bulky, otherwise your book won't close. So I've added all the alphas to spell the word love, as you can see there. And in the end, I do add some extra sequins after it's all put together. So it's not impossible to embellish it a bit further. So now I can attach that to my pop-out mechanism. And as I mentioned, there will be a diagram on the blog post on the Hip Kit Club. So you can see exactly how to construct your own. And I just need to stick, so when you're sticking down, you'll see there are two flaps in kind of this house shape mechanism, and one attaches to the front of the top side of the pop-out mechanism, and one attaches to the bottom. I don't know if you can see that in the video more clearly, but it becomes a bit more obvious once you've got it in your hand. So it's really important only to stick it to that bottom 1¼ inches. And again, that's on the diagram. And this allows the mechanism to move when it's in the book. So you'll find that it will open and bend, which is how it's supposed to. And because I'm going in a horizontal motion, it's important to stick it down the right way. So I was having some challenges there. I was trying to work out which way it should go. So a bit of trial and error, as it was my first one. So I've worked out which way it should go, and I'm sticking that triangle section that you can see here. So I've stuck the other side down onto the base of the book. Yay! So once it opens, it should open in the correct way, which is really fab. It's a great little mechanism. And as I say, just make sure it's all firmly stuck down, and you're not decorating the inside pages with anything too bulky. I've decided to use some die-cut cardstock, so I've die-cut some little balloons. But they'll lay nice and flat, and I also cut a heart out for the opposite side. But you'll see those on the final photos, but I purposefully kept everything as flat as I could and not use the chipboard pieces, but just the die cuts. I think those die cut flowers are from the embellishment kit. I can't beat a few flowers in my opinion. But they're great for just popping here and there and just really making everything look pretty. So I think I decide I kind of need a little bit more time to decorate the inside of the page. So I'll just go ahead and then finish off the front decoration. I've gone a bit backwards and forwards here, I think. So the album is about my little dog. He's really cute. He's 5 now, but that photograph is from when he was about 3 months old or 3 or 4 months old. He was such a cute little fur ball. But it was my daughter who really wanted the dog. So to get a dog, she pleaded and pleaded with us and kept saying no. And in the end, she did a PowerPoint presentation. And it was just the cutest thing ever. I think how old would she have been? She maybe 11 or 12. And that really kind of persuaded us. But ever since then, of course, she doesn't keep to her contract that she signed in the beginning about walking the dog. But everybody loves him anyway, especially my husband, who was really against having a dog. So he's the biggest fan. Look how cute these puffy buttons are. These came in the January main kit and they are just gorgeous. So Kim and Kimberly, can we have some more of these please, because I love them. There are a few little buttons and tiny weeny little puffy hearts, and just superb. So I am going to just embellish the front a little bit more using those alphas from the main kit. My apologies for my head. So I'm not sure if it's a universal abbreviation, but SWORK, sealed with a loving kiss. We always used to put that on our Valentine's cards. So a great way to just add a little bit of fun to the front of the album there. Yep, and it's still working, fantastic. So really, we've got the main structure done, and it's just now a case of adding some more detail and decorations. And I love those chipboard frames. They're like an embroidery hoop without the bulk. So they're nice, thick, sturdy frames. And what I'm going to do is back mine with a bit of yellow cardstock. So I just die cut a piece of that yellow there. And makes a perfect little frame. And I'm just going to use a photo of the dog. So I took this photo whilst we were at the park one day, and it was really windy. And he's got such big, long, floppy ears. It looks really funny when it's windy and they just fly back. You can tell I really love the dog. But he's the only one who sits still enough now for a photograph because the kids don't want to know. So he has become the subject of a lot of scrapbook layouts and projects. So the pattern paper that you can see there, that's the B side of the pattern paper. It's quite busy, so I'm kind of keen to make sure that what I put on top can be seen clearly. So I'm trying to pick out some of the more bold flowers and elements just to kind of layer up and decorate. I think that's the most enjoyable part of the process for me, is picking out the decorations, but you know, sometimes it just takes me the longest as well, just trying to make a decision. And you know, I have so much choice, it's fantastic. But I'm going with this offset design, and then I thought it was quite quick for me to make a good decision there. So as I mentioned, the pocket in between the pages is just the perfect size for another page for the album or some ephemera. And to do this, I'm using some scraps that I've got left over from other projects. So I always keep my little paper scraps because I think they're so important. But they're perfect for making little banners, die cutting small elements like the circle, or using a bit of the scrap and punching that out with a border punch. And they just add a detail and interest without any bulk. So I think it's a great way to use up your supplies. And again, because this is going into that pocket, it needs to be quite flat. Normally I would use things like foam tape, have bits sticking out or curling bits over. But because that pocket is so tight, because I didn't use foam tape between the pages, I do need to keep this as flat as I can. But you'll get a good idea, and it does work perfectly and does fit in perfectly. But again, it was just, in hindsight, I would have made it a little bit thicker if I could, a little bit wider rather, the pocket. So I've carried on, I've die cut a number of those balloons, so I'm just using another little bit that I've got left over, and it kind of ties in with the rest of the theme. So I think I must have missed a couple of elements where I've decorated some of the other pages, but you'll see all those on the close-ups. They're kind of pretty decorated in pretty much the same way, so nothing is standing there really. My main focus has been that pop-up. But I really love the album, and my daughter really loved it when she saw it, so I think that all worked out really, really well. Just adding one of those little puffy stickers on. So that wraps it up. I will leave you with the close-ups. I really, really hope that you've enjoyed the process of making that pop-up, and I would love it if you could have a go too. And if you do, please tag me on the Facebook group, on the Hip Kit Facebook group. I'd love to see your version of cards or albums. And thank you so much for joining me. I really hope you enjoyed it. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.